So we'll start lying down. So this evening, there's a bit of a theme, which I'll talk us through at the start. We're going to hold the poses for a little bit longer, so they're kind of a generous hold time. But don't panic. Don't panic in them. I'll watch the time and I'll give you a kind of a halfway mark, so you've got some understanding of where we are in the time, the scheme of it all. Props is just the usual for tonight. So maybe a block, maybe a cushion at some point towards the end as well, just to put under the hips. But without further ado, let's start. And I want us to start lying down. So just find a comfortable reclined position, Shavasana or bent legs, anything that you feel comfortable with. If you feel happier lying against something and getting a bit of support, or maybe sitting up slightly, which is up to you. So just find your position, find your comfortable snuggle for the first couple of moments. And when you feel ready, when you've got the adjustments out of the way, maybe let the eyes gently close over. And make any adjustments you need to, because we're going to be here for maybe 10 minutes or so. So don't put up with uncomfortable clothes or something that's digging into you. Move anything out of the way and let yourself just kind of surrender to this first relaxing pose this evening. Gently letting your mind come away from your day, come away from your tasks, away from any plans or commitments. And let your attention gently fall onto the space around you this evening. On your position in that space. So just becoming aware of the temperature of the room, of the air on your skin, any sounds in your vicinity. And now start to just draw your attention onto your breath. And a handy way to do that is just to pause between your inhale and exhale, just for a beat. And again at that crest between your exhale and inhale. And then notice the quality of the breath moving through your body. Filling your lungs, expanding your rib cage, or maybe down into your belly. And just for a moment or two, observe your body. Observe how things are feeling. Any stresses or tension. Before we even move through our practice, you have that ability to send your breath into those areas that are holding on to the day. So bring your body and your breath together. And just allow softness and ease to settle. And throughout this practice this evening, I want to explore the idea of letting go and how valuable it can be to let go of things, whether they're thoughts or stories we tell ourselves. There was a story I read earlier this week about a monkey who had a clay pot, and inside the clay pot there was a peanut. And when the monkey put his hand into the clay pot to hold onto the peanut to pull it out, he couldn't take his hand out. So he was stuck with this clay pot. And the only way that he could relieve himself and get that freedom was to just let go of the peanut. It wasn't attainable, it wasn't realistic. And I think that's quite a powerful analogy for the way we move through our lives sometimes, that we hold on to little peanuts or stories or concepts. So as we move through our practice tonight, I'm going to be inviting you to examine what you can let go of. So just for the last couple of moments, in this quiet start to our practice, just begin that process of letting go. Letting go of the effort on your breath. Letting yourself become heavy. Accepting that support of the floor underneath you. And let's explore that idea of letting go before we sit up or before we move. You can explore that idea in your position that you're in now. So without disturbing yourself, without even opening your eyes, I'll just invite you to maybe take 2 or 3 breaths while you clench your hands. So really squeeze your hands together, curling your fingers in. Breathing here. One more breath. And on your next exhale, just release. Let your hands go. Let them become heavy again. And notice that condition in your body. That feeling like it's radiating easiness as you let go of that tension. And then the same exercise, bring it into your legs. So again, for maybe 3 breaths, tense up all of the muscles in your legs, in your thighs, right down to your toes, stretch them out. And notice even what that does to your breath. Maybe your breath becomes more constricted. On your next exhale, soften, let that go, and observe. Observe softness and heaviness in areas that you didn't even know you were gripping before. Allow your exhales to really shed your body of that tension. Just let it go. And before we move into our practice, let's do that full body first. So stretch it out, maybe stretch arms up overhead, curling your toes, curling your fingers, tense every muscle in your face, belly in, and then exhale, soften, melt, ease down into the floor. One more time, just listening to your breath, observing your body, allowing softness as you let go of that tension. Watching those changes. And when you're ready to move, we will come into our first posture. So just blinking open the eyes, possibly rolling to one side, transitioning from your relaxation slowly to find yourself in a seated position. Just find yourself with your sit bones grounded down. You can sit up on a cushion as well if you want to raise your hips up slightly. It can take the pelvis out and just bring a bit of relief if you feel a little bit locked up. Sometimes sitting up on a prop can help. So we're going to start our practice with butterfly. So a few different options with this butterfly, because we're going to be spending a few minutes here. You may want to come into it in a few different ways. So soles of the feet will come together, and yogi's choice on where you want to go. You could bring your feet right up into your groins, which is going to introduce a little bit more work into the hip flexors, into the inner groins. Feet further away might bring it more into your IT band, outer thighs, outer legs. Another option, if you want to melt and maybe bring a bit more depth into the outer part of your legs, you can prop your feet up onto a support or onto a block. And then when you find your foot positioning and you find that point of resistance that you want to work into, you can tuck chin to your chest. You can let yourself become heavy and come into a forward fold. So hands can be comfortably down in front or inside your legs, out to the side. So use these first few moments to find your adjustments, find any niggles, any just slight adjustments that you need to make. If lower back is not enjoying a forward fold, you don't have to come down into the deepest forward fold. as I say, we're going to spend some time here. So commit to an edge that you can stay a little bit longer in. So at a comfortable or usefully uncomfortable 4 or 5. So with Yin, we rely on gravity to help us ease and open into these poses. And to stand up, to defy the laws of gravity all day takes tension. It takes work, it takes subconscious tension, which we need to let go of, we need to release. And when we find that ease, we can work with a little bit more intention, a little bit more depth into our target areas. So what can you let go of in this butterfly pose to let gravity do the work here? And we are about halfway through our first shape this evening. So where has your edge moved to? Can you soften a little bit further as your body invited you in just a little bit deeper? Where can you become heavy in these last few breaths here? Let your exhales work into those areas that are resistant or holding on to tension. Taking your last 2 or 3 deep breaths, enjoying whatever final moments are available in this pose for you. When we come from this forward fold, let's do it gently. Let's move really slowly to push the floor away. Head being the last thing to come up. And yogi's choice here on what rebound or counter pose you want to take. If you just want to lie back, particularly if you're watching this back, you can hit pause and come back into a rebound for a couple of minutes. If your lower back is kind of feeling a little bit tender, you can bend your knees. or maybe even take some windshield wipers, just knees going side to side. So just honoring your messages for a few breaths here, honoring any signals that your body is sending you, what it needs. The magic of these poses really starts to make itself known in the rebound, in our counter poses, when we observe that fragility, where we know is going to transform into softness, flexibility. So just taking another couple of moments, another couple of breaths in your rebound. And again, when you're ready and in your own time, coming back up to sit. So roll into one side or pushing yourself up. An easy transition between poses. So we're going to explore another forward fold. I'm going to give you a couple of options with this. So if you enjoy that butterfly type pose, sorry, I'm just moving things out of the way. What you can do is a half butterfly. So it's essentially the same. You can bring your left leg more out to the side and you can make it quite a nice wide half butterfly. And the reason we do that is to work into the hamstrings, so get into the backs of the legs perhaps, as well as maybe coming in a little bit more to the hip flexors if you just didn't get that access in the last pose. If that just doesn't feel great, or you don't want to work into your knees quite as much, let's just go into dragonfly, which is both legs outstretched, either knees bent or stretched out. And we're going to, whether you're in the dragonfly or in the half butterfly, let's bend over the left leg. So wherever you are, whatever your choice is this evening, find some softness over that left leg. Sometimes it can feel good to have a prop, and this is the same for dragonfly or for butterfly. You can sit a prop up onto your thigh, let your head become heavy, let your eyes rest into the palms of your hands. Or you can go prop free and just hang down towards your leg. And it's not about your forehead touching your shin. It's not about having a perfectly straight back or straight spine while we do this. This is about finding an edge that allows you to work into the target areas. So breathing into the back of that left leg, the back behind your knee, behind where your calf muscle runs along the bottom of your leg, allowing these parts of your body to receive that resistance, that stress, and breathing into that stress, into those points of resistance. Thinking of our monkey with his clay pot and letting go of the peanut to get that freedom. Are there areas of your body that are tensing here or gripping, thinking that you should be pushing down or you should be clenching to try and achieve someone else's ideal of what this pose is. Let that lower jaw go. Let the left buttock go if it's gripping. Let everything become soft and heavy. We're in our final few moments, so where can you just sink a little bit further before we retreat from this side of this pose? Where can you become heavy? Two final deep breaths. Inhaling, fully expanding those side ribs and back body. Exhaling completely. Drinking in the last couple of moments here. And coming up slowly, transitioning slowly. So walking your hands back to center. And let your hands just fall behind you. So take your weight straight away behind you and just bend into the knees. So draw that left knee in and we'll just windshield wiper really slowly, easily, observing how one side of the body feels. So we're not quite equalized yet. So just paying attention to how the body feels on the left versus the right side now. When you're ready, we'll switch that over to the other side. So again, make your decision, and what works on one side may not work on the other. So I'm happy, I don't mind if you've done butterfly on the left and you want to do dragonfly on the right. Just make your call based on what your body is kind of feeling. So if you're going butterfly, you can bring that left leg in and out to the side, and you can bring your right leg out. Or with dragonfly, it's just going to be both legs straight, possibly sitting up on something, possibly knees bent. And regardless of which way your body's sending you this evening, we'll take a forward fold over that right leg, grabbing any props, blocks, cushions, even propping underneath the knee can feel really good. And what I like to do sometimes is use that as a kind of a crash pad, a landing mat for me, for my head and for my forehead. Kind of takes the hamstrings out. It's more of a restorative version of the pose, but good to know it's available. So let your body dictate what journey you're on with this pose now. So letting the chin come to the chest, letting yourself become heavy. Getting any adjustments out of the way. So you can commit to that stillness. And sometimes with this concept of letting things go or trying to release, it's even that word trying, trying to let go is counterproductive. It's the opposite of what we're trying to achieve. When we try to let go, there's an effort involved. So letting go is just breathing, just softening. I use that word surrender sometimes, and that's what it is. It's the removal of expectation. And sometimes with yoga particularly, we've done poses in the past, or we've been able to do something. So we use that as our benchmark forevermore, forgetting the trials and tribulations that our body's constantly going through. So even our own expectations of ourselves can be the wrong benchmark to use. So for this right side, we just moved past that halfway mark. So for the last 2 minutes, where can you soften? Where are you trying? How can you stop trying for the last minute and a half or so? In our last few moments with our butterfly or dragonfly or whatever interpretation of this pose you have chosen for yourself tonight. Taking 2 final deep and full breaths to enjoy the last couple of moments. We will move slowly with intention, pushing the floor away. Head can be the last thing to come up. And before our next move, what I'll say is just to come as a counter pose, as a rebound, just come to child's pose. So drawing the knees together or maybe keeping them apart. Letting your belly become heavy on your thighs. Letting your sit bones work down towards your heels. And your forehead can be on the floor or the top of your head, the crown of your head on the floor. Arms outstretched in front, elbows bent. Or maybe even hands back at your heels. Just observing maybe how the right side feels versus the left now. Taking deep breaths, feeling your belly expand against your thighs, feeling your back rib cage broadening and sinking. Taking just another breath or two here, enjoying your rebound in your child's pose. And when you're ready, we're just going to move gently, easily, without too much effort or strain, into a quick and not too strenuous down dog. So tucking back toes under and just pushing the floor away. And I mean this very much so. It's not the most impressive. We're not going for down dog awards tonight. This is just walking the heels up and down, maybe opening into the backs of the legs, taking any movements that feel nice here, maybe even lengthening through the top of our bodies. And we use this down dog as a transition pose. So I'm going to move into pigeon. So for pigeon, I'm going to take my gaze forwards and lifting my left leg. So let's go left leg first. So left knee possibly behind my left wrist, right foot somewhere further forward towards your hands is going to possibly put a little bit more pressure on your knees. So if that feels a little bit sticky, move that foot back. And now we're going to spend a little bit less time in this pose, but wriggle, adjust, find your swan, find your pigeon. And if you want to stay here, that's perfectly fine. If you want to come down, if your hips are inviting you to move down, come all the way down into a sleeping swan. For anyone who just struggles with this, there is a reclined version as well. So if your pigeon is just squawking, you can do reclined swan, reclined pigeon. And I give that option. I give that option because it's important to know that options are available. But sometimes with this pose, this is one of those poses that comes laden with stories that we tell ourselves. So stories that I can't do swan, I can't do pigeon. And maybe there's a certain element of that that's true, but examine those stories. Is it, I can't do pigeon because I'm just not flexible enough, or I haven't been doing yoga long enough? Just examine those stories, because sometimes they are the limiting, the blockers that we need to that we need to let go of to enjoy our practice. So what are those stories that you tell yourself when you come to the mat? Not flexible enough, not doing this long enough, not on Instagram enough. All of these stories. or someone else's version of what you should be doing. So let them go. We have about 1.5 minutes. If you are sitting proud in your swan and want to explore a little bit more depth for the last few moments, just play with that edge, see if it's moved, see if things can transition a little bit further. Maybe not. Letting your breath support you for these final few moments here. So taking 3 deep breaths, filling the ribs, and maybe exhaling through the mouth. That can be a useful way to just take the pressure off a pose if it's particularly edgy for you. And on your next exhale, any sleeping swans, any heads down, it's time to start emerging. So thinking about using the hands to walk yourself back up to a proud swan, maybe taking a breath here. And you can just tuck the back toes under, and we'll step that left foot back into a down dog. Just as a counter pose. Again, we're not trying to build up heat. We're not trying to win awards. Just taking some movement after our swans or sleeping swans. And if you were in the reclined version and you just want to stretch your legs out, go for it. Find any counter pose that feels good. Before we move to the other side. So bringing the right knee up behind the right wrist. And you can use this kind of seesaw action to creep your back foot back. I like to use the back foot as a bit of leverage to angle myself in, to find my adjustment. So making your call here on where you're going to take your swan, what journey you're going to go on tonight. So maybe you just sit up tall, maybe even elbows onto a prop or two. Or maybe you're coming straight down into your sleeping swan. Head down, forehead onto your hands. Again, using these first few moments to challenge any stories associated with this pose. To see an opportunity to let something go. And let your eyes close over. Let yourself soften. As your body becomes unburdened by effort, feel yourself just sinking, easing, surrendering. heard this quote during the week as well, that our life is what our thoughts make it. Our life is what our thoughts make it. So imagine what things could be if we let go of those stories we tell ourselves, recognizing that our life is what our thoughts make it. Taking your last 2 breaths. Exploring anything that this pose offers before we get ready to move. Any sleeping swans. Gently thinking about lifting your head, pushing the floor away, and maybe taking a breath in this proud swan first, before again stepping that right foot back and coming into our down dog, just for a couple of moments here, walking it out. And then once again, knees come down to the floor, and just take a couple of moments in our child's pose, so big toes touching. And if anyone was doing that reclined pose, heading towards your child pose, and we will just pause here again in a quiet, reflective few moments of rebound. So observing how the body is feeling now, the mind is feeling, again in child's pose. And without disturbing yourself too much, you'll transition back to sitting. So find your way to your seated posture again, as gently and as quietly as possible. We'll come into another forward fold as before. If the body just isn't feeling forward folds or any issues with the lower back, sitting up on a prop, sitting up on a cushion can help. So pop something underneath the sit bones, or don't come so dramatically forward into it. So just work with maybe tucking chin to your chest. So we're going to come into caterpillar. Again, if hamstrings are just feeling a little bit done for the evening, just bend into the knees. Take that cushion underneath the knees, which just takes the hamstrings out of the equation. And again, we're not going to spend as long in this pose. So find your comfortable edge that you can hold for about 3 minutes. So let your chin tuck to your chest. Grabbing any supports, any additional props. And let your pose be supported by gravity. So let gravity do some of the work here for you. Let the back of your body receive anything that this pose has to offer. So with caterpillar, the target area is so vast as it's the entire backs of our bodies. So you might feel this into the backs of your legs, into your spine, into your shoulders, possibly even into your neck. So even if you've bent your knees and taken your legs out of this pose, it's not that you're doing it wrong. No doubt you're still feeling that point of resistance somewhere. And as we say with yin, if you're feeling it, you're doing it. So just breathe into the points of resistance, target areas that you are working. And wherever you are, think about gently drawing yourself back out of this pose. So hands can come to the floor. You can start to walk yourself up. And if your eyes are closed, keep them closed, because you're just going to walk yourself down to the floor, back onto the floor. Let your whole body ease and sink. In your rebound Shavasana just for a moment or two. We started in Shavasana. We started with that bracing and releasing. So how do those areas of your body feel now? Any space that was holding tension? Our next shape, our next pose, whatever you want to call it this evening. So we've done a little bit of work into the back body, into the backs of our legs, possibly into adductors and hip flexors. And I just want to continue that work through the hip flexors, particularly the psoas muscles. And to do that, all I'm going to ask you to do is grab a cushion or some prop to put underneath the sacrum. So I have a bolster, but you don't even need to use something as dramatic as a bolster. I just have a hand. I'm just going to pop my prop underneath my sacrum, which is that flat part of the lower back. So I don't want it too much to be under the kind of the arch of the back here. It's more kind of bum sacrum area. And if it feels comfortable for you, you can straighten out your legs. Now that's just going to bring in a little bit more work into the front body. If that just feels not achievable, you can bend into the knees. Find your adjustments. So working with your prop, get any wriggles and movement out of the way, try and get the positioning right. Again, we're going to hold this for some time, so commit to that stillness. Commit to finding that point of resistance that feels useful, and then pausing. So with that adjustment, decide if your feet are flopping out to the side or if they're a little bit closer. Maybe even play with your arm placement, so if arms are up overhead or out to the sides. And again, try and examine those stories. And sometimes the stories we tell ourselves are not kind of psychological, or they live in our muscles, they live in our tissues. So if your front body is bracing because it, on some level, believes this isn't something it wants you to do, just examine that. See if you can soften. Work into deep belly breaths. And for the final few minutes with this pose, I will let you marinate in your thoughts and in quietness with one quote. Attention is who we think we should be. Relaxation is who we really are. So tension is who we think we should be, and relaxation is who we really are. Taking your final 3 breaths. Deep inhales and long exhales. Before we move completely from this pose, just bend the knees and remove that prop, whatever it is, whether it's a folded up towel or blanket or cushion, just move it out of the way. And pause here. It may feel even really good to just draw your knees into your chest and roll out that lower spine. Just rock side to side. You have a final twist to enjoy. So with the knees drawn up to center, you can just bend your left leg, left knee down, and hooking the right leg over. What we'll do is we'll use that left leg as kind of a bit of leverage, a bit of weight down to come down into our twisted roots. So legs can fall out to the left and they don't need to touch the floor. This isn't about completing a twist and getting the whole way down, and you can float in midair. There's no problem with that. Right arm again can come out to the side. You may find that the shoulders kind of floating. Left hand can feel really nice on that right knee. Just draw it down a little bit further. If you've any issues, if the lower back is just screaming at you a little bit, you can just prop your legs up using your cushion, using your prop. And again, just getting your adjustments, getting your wriggles out of the way, and then committing to stillness. Committing to quietness. Letting the eyes become heavy, eyelids gently close over. Letting the face become soft. Allowing the breaths to become long and slow. Unraveling your roots, letting your knees come back to center, drawing your hips into center just for a breath, finding that kind of neutral position, and then enjoying your twisted roots on the other side. So left leg can cross over the right. You can play with the foot placement here. It doesn't have to be all the way across. You can maybe more of a suggestion of a crossed leg. It doesn't have to be absolute. And just let yourself become heavy. So essentially your legs are moving across your body. Left arm out by the side, cactus arms, maybe even just down easily at your side. No pressure, no effort, no gripping, Just ease. Letting go and releasing into the stillness of this pose. Allowing your eyes to become heavy as all the muscles in your face just relax and soften. And when you're ready, gently drawing yourself back to center, unraveling your roots and finding your final Shavasana, so your final relaxation for this evening. So grabbing anything you need, a blanket, eye pillow, cushion under the knees if your lower back feels a little bit tender or achy. As with every other pose, we get our adjustments and our wriggles out of the way for the first few moments. Shavasana, just like any other yoga pose, we need to commit to this stillness. So make yourself as comfortable as possible. Committing to the quietness, letting go of expectation. Let things be as they are, just as they are, everything in its place. Let the rain fall on the roof and down the gutters. Let the wind press its face against the windows. Let the thunder hollow its name. In the midst of today's storm, there is you at peace, at the center of all things. In the world of the natural, nothing is improved by our doing. Drop out of the relentless quest of more, better, and faster. When we stop trying to change the things, their inner beauty reveals itself. Sky shifts its hues in response. Hidden daffodils display their colors. The birdsong reveals its symphony. The trees shed their miracles. Joy rises up from below. as heaven descends from the clouds. One lifetime has many lives. Begin the one where everything, including you, is exactly as it's supposed to be. And as always, please stay for as long as you can. Surrender to your Shavasana this evening. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. Night. Namaste.